Hardness and speed to erections also increased. All that stuff better, right? While that is nice, that to me is not enough to justify being on TRT the rest of my life. Shaquille Oatmeal says, been experiencing major brain fog, low libido, increased irritability, and some weight gain despite no major changes in the lifestyle. Scheduled to get a whole host of tests within the next week with a possibility of a referral to an endocrinologist or a urologist, basically a hormone doctor or a PP doctor, penis doctor, depending on the issue. Curious to know what tests you have done so far, what has helped with your brain fog, if anything, as that is the most frustrating thing for me. It's like constant state of grogginess. So I'll talk about my experience with TRT. Guys, spoiler alert, I am not natural because I am on testosterone. TRT, really, for medical reasons. Exclamation mark TRT, if I see a bit of my history. Basically, right now it's June 2020. September 2019, I tested at 87 nanograms per deciliter for total T. That was the lowest I have been in the last 2 years. The 2 years prior to that, it's been kind of bouncing between 87 and 420, with a couple tests at low 200s. So I've been trying to do stuff to bring it back up because I was also experiencing the same symptoms of brain fog, lower energy, increased irritability, or just, grumpiness, lower libido. Yep. Softer erections, even though I still get erections. It's just a little more effort, a little bit more time to get it to where I want it to be for sex, and definitely not as hard as before, right? So all those things playing a role. They're all considered for the most part non-specific symptoms of low T. And I'm 35 for those who are curious. So non-specific. So the specific symptoms of hypogonadism are basically low testosterone. Is you could think of it as more severe low T, which is basically as if you had no balls. Essentially, all the masculine traits are gone, which is your ability to grow facial hair or just hair in general starts to decrease. Higher pitched voice. All of the sex and erection stuff I was talking about earlier. And of course, all those non-specific symptoms of fatigue and whatnot, but also lower, poor performance in the gym. That's another non-specific symptom. What else about hypogonadism, specific symptoms? Also your breasts, your chest starts to have more fat accumulating, basically, from higher estrogen levels or your testosterone, estrogen out of whack. So think of all of those symptoms as if your balls are just never worked, not functioning. That is specific hypogonadism, which is not what a lot of us deal with. A lot of us who are considering TRT or reading into it, we're experiencing some non-specific symptoms. And the non-specific symptoms of what I was experiencing and what also Shaquille is experiencing, it's easy to read on the internet and think that this is the cure. But apply some caution. We know it's correlated, where people with low T is correlated with these symptoms. But is it the cause or is it a symptom? Right? So does having low T cause all these symptoms of what I was experiencing, non-specific stuff? My gym recovery sucked, general brain fog, fatigue, and sex performance not as good as before, right? All that stuff, it could be that having low T cause those issues. It could be that it's just correlated. Whatever's causing that is also causing low T. We don't really know. Yeah, I read a lot of different studies and the scientists and stuff. There at this point, it's correlation and speculation about what could be causing it. So my opinion on this stuff is always approach the holistic, low-hanging fruit stuff first, which is the 4 pillars of health being nutrition, activity or exercise, sleep, and mental health. If any one of those 4 pillars is complete shit, fix that first. That's just good life advice for just living healthy. And then start looking at things okay, then let's start seeing, once you get that stuff in order, now let's go look at medical intervention for something like TRT. Because medical intervention, okay, this is my opinion, but I try to avoid invasive, strong medical intervention if there's lifestyle habits that I could change. So for example, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, a lifestyle disease of really poor nutrition and really poor activity. Both of those can reverse type 2 diabetes. And I would address that first. I would try to address those lifestyle factors. Well, of course, like it depends on how far gone you are on type 2 diabetes. Work with your doctor on this. But those are two major lifestyle factors that should be addressed while treating type 2 diabetes, right? Same thing with low T. I would try to make sure you're not stressed out of your mind. I would try to make sure you're getting good sleep, quantity and quality. I would try to make sure that your nutrition isn't crap. Like you're just not like you're eating mostly healthy, whole food in a diverse array of food. I would make sure you're getting in some activity, at least a couple times per week. Honestly, man, if you just do some resistance training and or some cardio, that's fine. You're doing fantastic. So then I would start looking at stuff like, medical intervention. And so I basically did all of that. Thank you for the bits.
Roger that.
So I started, I pretty much addressed all of those for like 2 years, and sleep being the only one that wasn't really where it needed to be. And so also until that point, when I did a bit of a sleep challenge in the winter of 2019, so like January through February, my T did shoot up to 420. Like after getting like 9 hours of sleep, 12 hours of sleep every night for like a month. And then I kind of paid off my sleep debt. My sleep then went to like 7.5 to 9 hours every night. Like, so I paid off sleep debt, went back to normal-ish sleep, and I did feel better across the board, but it didn't last that long. Yeah, 420 blaze. Yeah, 420 blaze testosterone levels. So the 9 to 12 hours of sleep, it felt bad at first. Like I needed more sleep, but that's because I was so sleep deprived, having kids, 2 little ones, like, you know, a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time, or 2 and 3. They're very young. And so that plus the stress of life in general and like streaming and working out, all that stuff, I think might have played a role. That could have been causal for all of this, which I'll get to in a second. But anyway, it did not make a huge, massive difference. So therefore I tried out the testosterone stuff when I was feeling my worst, actually, which was in September 2019, all this stuff kind of piling on. And so then I tried Clomid for 2 months, which is a relatively non-invasive way of trying to bring up testosterone. Basically, it's a pill that stimulates the pituitary gland to then downstream stimulate your balls to produce more testosterone. It's kind of an indirect way to get your testosterone kickstarted. Okay. Tried it out for 2 months, didn't feel much of a difference, so I switched over to testosterone, which there's 2 different ways to do it, typically anyway. The 2 most common ways is either injections, where you get you basically get a needle and, you know, a syringe, and you inject it into your you put it in your butt, or you put it into your leg, but typically the butt is where most people do it. And you inject some every like 3 or 7 days, and then the other method is gel, testosterone gel, where basically you just apply it to your shoulders or your body, wherever it says. You apply it on your body, and then you absorb it, and you do it daily. So Andre asked earlier why I went with Clomid and gels instead of injections. 2 reasons. One, out of convenience. It's just much more convenient for me to work in like 3 minutes of gelling myself every day, as opposed to like 10, 20 minutes to prepare the injection, set aside time, get away from my kids, all that kind of stuff, and then deal, like, you know, clean the site, all that stuff, and deal with the sharps afterward. I don't like dealing with sharps not because I'm afraid of poking and injections, but because I have to have a sharps container, and I have to put the sharps container somewhere up high, and I have to like deal with that once every couple of months to like pay for shipping and get rid of out of the house. It's just annoying. I'd rather not deal with that. So I'd rather just do gloves and throw away the gloves. So so that's, and the other reason why I didn't want to do injections is because some people might be thinking like, Tom, you're doing gel. Don't you know? You read online. People say it doesn't do much for them. Doctors usually do the testosterone clinics, or the anti-aging clinics. They usually do injections, bro. Well, some doctors, legitimate TRT doctors who are used to treating many men with low testosterone, they actually prefer gel. I forget, there's a name of the famous one. He prefers the gel over the injections because the valleys and the valleys and the peaks are smoother. Meaning, if you inject once every 3 or 7 days, it's going to spike, and then it's going to come back down, and the average will be higher testosterone. But the highs and the lows will be kind of going up and down quite a bit. Is it that big of a deal? Maybe not. But the testosterone gel every day is kind of the same. And I'm of the type, I like to mimic our ancestry, mimic our biology of how it should be, which is every day when you sleep, your testosterone is rising. So basically, testosterone is regenerating while we're sleeping, and it peaks in the morning, right, when we wake up, and then it slowly comes back down throughout the entire day. When you sleep, it's regenerating. So sleep is anabolic, guys. It raises your testosterone. So get your sleep. That being said, I want to mimic that more closely and not do injections where it goes really like super physiological and then back down. And my hypothesis, and I don't know if this has been tested, but my hypothesis is those guys who say they didn't feel anything on the gel, but they felt something on injections, I would suspect it's because when they inject, it is such a high super physiological dose that you can't ignore that. You can't ignore that. Like your body just feels so good or so whatever they're feeling. You can't ignore it. So they feel like it is doing something versus the gel. It was doing nothing because it went back to normal. My hypothesis is it's not doing much because that wasn't the cause of their problems. That was a symptom. And so they're fixing one symptom, but the other cause is still there. Meaning in my case, so how do I feel now after all this time? After being on TRT, slowly increasing the doses. So again, 2 months of Clomid, and then I did 2 months of 1 pump, or 1 or 2 months of 1 pump. Sorry, 2 pumps of the androgel. Brought my T up to like low 200s. So we upped it to 3 pumps. It brought it to like 400. Still not feeling great. Now I'm on 4 pumps, and I'm going to get tested in about end of June, 2020, end of June. Gonna see where it's at, and if it's medium high, then I'm done. Like it did not solve my problems. I want to get off of it before my balls shut off permanently, because medical intervention is like screwing with a tightly regulated system like your hormones. That is not, there's a ton of feedback systems in there, and that is not something you screw with lightly. Seriously, a lot of young guys think about doing testosterone or drugs. You just jump into it without thinking about it. You're screwing with hormones as a tightly regulated feedback system where one thing impacts the other. So this is not, and there's a lot we don't understand about it. Seriously, there's a lot we don't understand about how hormones all impact each other. So tread lightly with that stuff. And again, I prefer minimum intervention, and it didn't solve my problem. So what was solved? I'll tell you from my experience, in terms of my sex performance, all that stuff, all that's better. So basically sex drive increased a lot. Hardness and speed to erections also increased. All that stuff better, right? While that is nice, that to me is not enough to justify being on TRT the rest of my life, okay? Unless my testosterone is permanently shot, in which case then we'll revisit this. But so yeah, morning wood absolutely is way back. So like before, I would get morning wood like once a month at most. At the age of like 34, right? I'm 35 now. Happy birthday to me. Yay. Birthday stream this month, by the way, this Friday, Saturday. We're gonna do a birthday stream. Anyway, so yes, hey, you know what? Happy wife, happy life, right, guys? So that is better, fantastic. But the other symptoms of general brain fog and fatigue did not improve. I pretty much felt zero difference. Gym performance, I didn't really feel much of a difference, but I wasn't really pushing major amounts of volume or strength. Hard to say. It made a big difference. And also, I don't care that much about gym performance. My traps and shoulders, do they seem bigger? It's hard to say. Some people have commented on it. Maybe one of these days, maybe I will do a comparison of similar body weight before and after T, and also try to find similar volumes of training so that I can just see in the camera. From what I can tell, I don't feel like my traps or shoulders changed much. Maybe they did. So I won't discount that, because testosterone, people go on steroids that can improve your traps and shoulders look. Anyway, so for the testosterone stuff, what I think is going on is potentially the other aspect is my mental health. While I feel like it's pretty good, it is very possible that I am just not resting enough. So I was talking with Kanga, !coaching, 5PH. There's 3 of us. We're doing the group coaching, me, Brandon, and Kanga. He's a medical doctor, but he also did some mental health coaching in the past. So he suspects I just don't have time to unwind. And you know what? I think that's kind of true, especially with COVID these days, even more so. I don't get alone time. I don't get time for my brain to kind of just shut off and veg out. I'm kind of just always on, which I don't mind, except it's slowly starting to crack me in different ways. And so I kind of need time where I'm uninterrupted, and I'm starting to pay more attention to what is mentally draining me more and how to recover from that. So things like meditation, I'm thinking about using some more of that. So all that to be said, we're on this journey of TRT, and I don't think it's not solving my issues. So I'm going to address other things like, like sleep. I'll be revisiting sleep again to try to up my sleep. I'll be revisiting things like decaffeinating, but I've tried decaffeinating in the past. It didn't make much of a difference. The next main thing I'll really focus on is mental health, sleep, meditation, all that kind of stuff, to do stuff to recharge myself and see if that makes a big difference. And I'll start checking some other low-hanging fruit stuff. Actually, the meditation I consider to be kind of low-hanging fruit. And then I'll look for high-hanging fruit, really obscure health things, like cutting out artificial sweeteners, cutting out artificial coloring, all these random things that probably has it has a very small chance of having any kind of effect on anything. Even though most people in the population probably should not worry about that at all. But when troubleshooting things, I'm gonna start with the lowest hanging fruit stuff and slowly work my way up to really obscure things. Try things like a ketogenic diet, all of these other things. So these are things I'll be considering. So I didn't really answer your question, Shaquille, which is, what tests have I done so far? So to give a quick history of tests, basically about 2 to 3 years ago is when I started suspecting maybe I have low T. Talked to my doctor about it and explained my symptoms, which again, very non-specific symptoms of not as hard as it used to be, sex isn't as good, generally grumpy, more fatigued, brain fog. A lot of these are very common among many of us, and it could have many different causes. So I told him those things. He got me basically the minimum stuff you should get checked for testosterone is like your total T and your free T at an absolute minimum. Also, you can look up on the internet why, because this is kind of going on long, but I want to wrap up this question. But basically, total T, free T, probably get your estradiol checked, which is basically estrogen, and then your sex-binding hormone globulin, which is SBHG. Check those 4 to see if any of those are out of whack. And then there's also more they would check too, like FSH, LH, and so forth. There's a whole panel of stuff. It depends on your insurance, depends what your doctor wants to check. If your insurance and or healthcare can just cover all the costs, then just ask them to check everything, which might be kind of tough because usually in systems where they're covering stuff, you have to do some convincing to make sure they actually check everything instead of the bare minimum. Because if you just check total T, that may not see the whole picture. So I did all of those on and off for a couple of years. I've checked some other obscure stuff too, or not obscure, but like low-hanging fruit stuff like vitamin D, B12, iron, folate, all of those other things. So anyway, I will probably get off of this in the next month, and hopefully my testosterone will come back to normal. It's probably gonna suck this summer in terms of like if I go off of TRT, my testosterone will be shot until my balls restart, in which case I'm probably gonna feel extra worse. That's kind of expected. And then see where I'm at. If my testosterone is like if I try all these other things, my testosterone is like permanently under 200, I will probably then just resume being on TRT for life. Why? Because studies do show a correlation between low testosterone and also worse mortality rates. Basically, they die earlier. Again, they actually, if I remember correctly, they factored in unhealthy lifestyles. They took out the confounding variables of unhealthy lifestyles in order to get a clearer picture that even with healthy lifestyles, there was a higher correlation of lower T with mortality. So in a year or two, testosterone is still low, and I've done everything to try to get my testosterone back up and feel better. Still not working. I'll probably resume being on T the rest of my life. But this is the kind of stuff that I think all men should be thinking about, because medical intervention like this is a serious life decision that could permanently change things. A lot of guys will ask me like, hey Tom, I want to do a cycle of steroids. What do you think? Well, first of all, I don't know much about steroids. Steroid levels, the difference between TRT and steroid levels is just the dosage. TRT is testosterone to try to get you back to normal range. Steroids is higher levels of testosterone to get you to supraphysiological or like superhuman levels of testosterone. And they're both testosterone. It's just why are you doing it and what's the end number you're going for. Even with doing a single cycle, that has the non-zero chance that it could permanently fuck you over. Unlikely, right? I don't want to fearmonger. It's pretty unlikely, but at the same time, I don't recommend men to just jump into it while thinking about the consequences and thinking about other low-hanging, like zero-impact stuff, such as cleaning up your diet and eating less junk food, sleeping a little bit more, getting better quality sleep. These are things that all of us should try doing. My brain fog did seem to dissipate more when I was sleeping better, so I'm going to be trying that out some more. Anyway, Shaquille, I hope that helps. But yeah, I totally open and honest about this stuff because I think we should be honest about our medical history and help other people and just explain what we're going through, explain even the symptoms of like, yep, softer erections versus harder erections. That is something people will wonder about, right? If you like the content, comment and subscribe on YouTube. Also, follow us on Twitch and leave the notifications on. Feed your brain, feed your body, and see you next time.